Welcome back to the AI Ripple Effect podcast, everybody. Today, we're joined by Cedric Pashi, who is the co-founder and head of MyRide NEMT. So welcome to the podcast, Cedric.
Adrian, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation. And just to let everybody know, we've already started this conversation off camera. So now I'm glad that we can start bringing this conversation on camera because AI is a very important conversation to have, especially with the direction that AI is going.
100%, 100%. So why don't, Cedric, if it's all right with you, why don't you just give us, start by telling us about you, about the company, and who your customers are?
Yeah, thank you very much for the platform. So again, my name is Cedric, as Adrian introduced me. I'm located here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am the co-founder of MyRide NEMT, which is a non-emergency medical transportation organization. We provide transportation services for the senior community. So as you can imagine, the customers that we provide transportation for are the exact opposite direction of where we're going from a technology standpoint. So we are kind of in that intersection of how do we introduce technology into our business and directly with our customers without kind of taking away that personal touch. And that's a lot of what we're studying right now and how we're implementing AI into our business. So just to give you a little bit more of a background, we're located here in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a Midwest town in the United States. If you know anything about Cincinnati and the Midwest, we seem to be a little bit behind when it comes to implementing new technologies into our business. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm having these conversations, I'm using AI, and so that we can get a little bit ahead of what's coming and how we can use AI to optimize our services for our customers.
Awesome. Awesome. Really good point. Out of interest, what made you set up business in the first place?
Great question. And actually, my business partner, he was really the one that got us started in this business. So while I don't want to put out too much of his business, we went to high school together here in Cincinnati, Ohio, Lakota East High School, and so we've been involved in different businesses. A couple of years ago, unfortunately, he went through a little health situation. It's not little. He went through a health situation, and he had to get his leg amputated, and so in that process, he really became dependent on his family members and kind of felt a little bit guilty about taking them away from their work for when it came to transportation. He would spend hours at the hospital and waiting for his ride if he was using maybe like an Uber or Lyft or something like that. So there was a lot of challenges that he had when he was going through his health issues. And so when he kind of gathered his strength, he came to me and really talked about a lot of the challenges that he had with transportation and just the
Right.
challenges that other people that when he was at the hospital that he saw people were waiting for hours, people's rides were canceling, the senior community and people with disabilities, they move a little bit slower. So if you ever use Uber or Lyft, you know there's kind of a 5 minute waiting time. So they would leave, there was a lot of cancellation fees. And so we wanted just to create a business that addressed those challenges and that was specific for the senior and disability community.
Really interesting. Amazing. What are you seeing as the biggest trends in your industry right now?
So I'm seeing a couple of different things. Number one is how is automated vehicles going to affect kind of the services that we're able to provide? From that standpoint, we're kind of thinking about cost and usefulness. Second thing is how can technology and AI be implemented in the logistics part of the business and really getting our drivers organized and their route times optimized? And then finally, the last thing, how are our customers or our riders going to respond with the introduction of AI into the business? Because if you heard my description, we serve the senior community. The senior community is not very adept to using technology. So you have to be very careful of how you introduce that technology. And so we are balancing, should we introduce it as a customer facing thing or should we just use it internally and help us to optimize in the background? So those are the conversations and the directions that we're seeing.
So you have to be careful on that communication, I guess, with your client base to make sure there's no fear inserted. So that's really interesting. And are you looking? So you talk about automation, vehicle automation. I mean, that feels a way off at the moment, or are you actually engaging in any of that sort of dialogue and narrative?
We're starting to have those conversations. I think it's still a little bit of a ways. So for myself, I think it's almost a generation thing as we think about how we're going to introduce automation. So myself, I'm 37 years old, so I'm right there smack in the middle of being a millennial. I feel like
Right.
my generation is kind of like the early adopters of all technology because we've kind of lived on both sides. And I can see us really adapting to or partaking in autonomous vehicles, where I feel that the boomer generation, which is a little bit of older generation, they're going to be a little bit more skeptical. So we really have to balance on how we're going to introduce, when we get to that point, how we're going to introduce autonomous vehicles. And maybe there might be like an aid in there as well, so then the senior's not just there by themselves. But I think we're still a little bit of ways off before we kind of really reach that point where that's the go-to transportation service within the non-emergency medical transportation space.
Okay, and I guess it's the customer facing aspect from a back office element. Are you looking at sort of how balancing traditional operations with the advent of modern technology? Is that a challenge you're embracing at this moment?
Yes, 100%. And so when I think of front facing, I think of what are those conversations like when you're using when your phone? What's that communication like if you're communicating through email or through text message? And then also, how comfortable will our senior community really be with being on the other side of technology and AI? So those are things that we're really kind of diving into and slowly implementing and introducing to our clients.
And from a growth and scaling perspective, obviously, you are a business on the growth curve. What milestones have you experienced currently with your growth
And
trajectory?
are you saying that related to just in our business in general, or related to like the implementation of like AI and technology?
Maybe the business first, and then if you've used AI in any way to help with that, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
Like some of the KPIs that we measure to see if we're headed in the right direction, it really is centered around the number of customers or number of clients that we're providing transportation for. In that way, we're seeing very big growth over the past 2 to 3 months from a how our technology is being introduced. Can we start that back over? Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So from a growth standpoint, business wise, the milestones that we really kind of pay attention to are customer satisfaction, some of the more traditional KPIs, customer satisfaction, number of rides given, number of partnerships given. Not to go too much into our business, but our customer avatar is really uh, senior housing communities, hospitals, and things of that sort. And then we provide transportation for the people that use their service. So the number of partnerships that we're formulating, and then how we're delivering our transportation services, those are kind of the three major KPIs that we're taking a look at to determine how if we're headed to the right direction. And over the past 2 to 3 months, we've really seen a big jump as we've added more partnerships and formed more relationships with different senior housing communities and different hospitals. From that standpoint,
Wow.
things are going great.
Scaling, challenge.
Exactly. Things are going great. There's some challenges there, so let me not address those. But the challenges are just when you add more partnerships and you're adding more rides. To keep it very simple, you have to add more staff, and you have to add more vehicles. So fleet growth, driver growth, employee growth, and then also the challenges of communicating with a larger and larger organization as well. So those are kind of some of the places that I think AI can make a huge impact internally, is how do we communicate with our drivers? How do we communicate our routes? How do we make sure that each vehicle is optimized each and every single day? And then also, whenever we have some emergency services that we need to give, last call in, can we use AI to kind of determine who's the best person that's already out and driving about, who's the best person to actually take on this new rider, or yeah, this new requested ride? So there's a lot of things to really take into account of how we can utilize AI and technology within our business.
And you talk about that logic around who's the best driver, et cetera. Is that all in your head? Is that the best source of that information? Could you then transpose that into an AI, or is it always going to be a need to augment your brain with an AI capability?
That's a great question. I would say actually it's 50-50, because what AI could do, AI is a very logical technology. The inputs that it receives, it will give you a direct output. So things like, where is our current driver? Who's the closest? What is their route for the day? I think some of those things that don't take much thought beyond just seeing what the data is and then making a decision based on the data, I feel like AI would be perfect for in that space. But as far as the actual relationship, some of the non-logical aspects of the driver, the personality of the driver, whether they've driven this person before or not. How would this driver adapt in a emergency type of situation? Some of those things are things that I do not believe AI could really differentiate at this point. I think in the future, I think really soon it will be able to do that. But as of right now, that's kind of dependent on myself or really our dispatch team to kind of make those decisions. So with those things being said, I think it's really a collaboration of the two, of the human and of the AI. And that's how you can kind of get the most
Sure.
out of technology versus kind of depending on one or the other. I would say it's a both kind of thing.
100% agree. Yeah, great answer. And you talked about challenges earlier. And hypothetically, if you had, with the benefit of hindsight, and if you had a time machine and you were able to go back 12 months is a long time in the AI space, what would you do differently?
Very good question. If I had to go back in time and I had to do things differently, I think I would. Here's how I've used AI so far. When I first really got into AI, it was about kind of just self productivity. How can I use AI? And even my use of AI has kind of evolved over time, where I just asked AI a couple of things and hope that it shot out the right answer. But really now I've used it as more of a collaboration piece where it's more like a brainstorming tool. This is AI is kind of like one of my best friends. We have these conversations. I ask it questions. I had it ask me questions. And I don't want to become so dependent on AI. I can only operate with AI. I can't operate on my own. I want AI to help me to speed up my learning process and how to scale and grow my business. So if I had to go back, I think I would change how I used AI in the beginning because it felt more like a burden or it felt more like something I was dependent on versus now I feel like it's more like a friend. It's almost like an executive assistant and it helps me to really think through things and helps me to make decisions quicker. So if I had to go back, that's how I would use AI and I would introduce it a lot sooner to some of our internal employees and really center our training not only on just the aspects of the business, but also how we're using AI on an individual basis. And then what low
Sure.
hanging fruit can we use AI to implement into our business?
Great answer. Like
I
it.
thought about this a lot.
Brilliant.
I thought about this a lot. Not to
Excellent.
interrupt you, and I apologize about that.
Sure,
I'm not
sure. No
quite
worries.
sure if this is really relevant for over in Europe or anything like that, but when I was growing up, there was in baseball there was an era in baseball was really about steroids and performance enhancing drugs. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it.
Besides the kind of the negative connotations behind that, I view AI as that performance enhancing drugs. It helps me to raise my level of understanding of my learning, of my skill set, and then it helps me to actually utilize that within my business and help my business to grow and start seeing some trends and moving in the right direction. So it helps me just to make decisions quicker and things of that sort. But just like performance enhancing drugs, if you become too dependent or addicted to it, it actually has a negative effect on you as it can have a negative effect on you as well. So really finding that balance between how much am I using AI and how is it helping me and how can I use my own brain power to also make decisions. I think it's very, very important, especially as kind of the new generation is just being introduced to AI from a very young standpoint.
Yeah. No, I love that analogy. It's great. Brilliant. And what are your plans for the coming year? What is your focus for the next 12 months?
Yeah. So I talked a lot about low hanging fruit, and what I would like to see from AI is not just me using it for self productivity, but also implementing it into our business. And I think the three areas that I would like to implement AI is content creation. I think we're seeing a lot of that. And then also internal communication. How can we use AI to do some internal communications? Then also, finally, AI has really forced me to do what I really love about AI. It's really forced me to look at my own processes and make sure that these are the processes. Because if AI is dependent on the data and the information I give to it to help to automate or optimize our processes, I need to make sure that those processes are actually accurate and correct. So it's really forced me to as a business owner slow down and really work on my business, on the processes and things of that sort that I'm going to feed into the AI. And that's really been a good process for us, because sometimes when you're a business owner, you forget to slow down a little bit and you're always kind of moving on to the next thing, moving on to the next thing. And things are kind of done halfway or 3/4 of the way versus, is this really the process? Is this really the easiest way for us to do things? So it's helped me to just think about the business as a whole and what direction we're moving in. But those are the 3 areas I'm really focused on for the rest of the year.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. And for the people listening who want to check out MyRide NEMT, where can they find information? Where can they
So
go?
there's a few different places that you can go. The number one place is on social media. We are on all the platforms. You can just find us at MyRide NEMT. That's the name on all the platforms. We have started a new YouTube page where we will really highlight some of the things that are going on in the business, and then also be an advocate for some of the partnerships that we have. So our first video,
Right.
it will be actually dropping here in about 2 to 3 weeks. So this is actually very good timing. And then finally, you
Awesome.
can just visit us on our website, www.myridenemt.com, and you can find a lot of information about us there. And if you want to connect with me personally, please find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. The name is Cedric Pashi, Pashi.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Cedric. I'll make sure I drop some of those links into the description. And thank you very much for your insights. Really good. Appreciate your time. And thank you to everybody for joining today. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you,
Cheers.
Cedric. And that's a wrap.